Forjó con lucha. Impulsando cada paso, encendiendo cada sueño. Creemos en Colombia y en cada colombiano que se levanta a crear, a inspirar, a avanzar. TGI, energía para crecer.
TGI, Energy for Growth.
Con el inversionista del Grupo Energía Bogotá. Bienvenidos todos a nuestra conferencia de resultados de TGI Cálidda del segundo trimestre de 2025. Esta conferencia se realiza en español con traducción simultánea y está siendo grabada. Los informes de resultados fueron remitidos el día de ayer y están disponibles para su consulta. La llamada de hoy será liderada por
Today's call is going to be led by Juan Andrés Henao, the General Manager of TGI, and Mario Caballero, Cálidda's director. After that, we will answer your questions. Now we will move on with Cálidda's presentation. To that end, include your questions in the chat and give your name and the country you represent. I now give the floor to Jorge, who will begin the presentation of results. Good morning, Jorge. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to lead today's call for the results of the second quarter of 2025. The most important thing to mention is that we continue having positive results above what was forecasted. This is where we will see on the first slide. So we basically have income by 100. You are seeing in detail the slide. We have a delay. Let's put it up on screen. We see 503 million as a result for the second quarter of 2025, which means 1.1% above what was budgeted, even though it is a lower result than 2024. We are very close to the numbers from last year. In terms of EBITDA, we have accumulated 376 million above the budget for 2025. It's important to serve and to pay attention to and to see the direction of the main results. In terms of income, we have increases in revenues for higher amounts, values recognized as losses, and even though we have a drop in the thermal demand that accounts for 200 extra millions, we, in a very healthy way, are making up for the expenses, given that we have lower combustible gas consumption because of the hydraulic injection into our system. We also have an increase in reposition gas and also administrative expenses that gives us that minus 11.8% compared to 2025's budget. On the next slide, we see the summary of net profits of 114 billions, plus 49% versus the budget of 2025, and this is because of the lower expenses that we just mentioned, and of course this is driven by the impact on lower financial expenses that we have 23% less than 2024, and this is distributed in 25% thanks to the payment of the club deal and the negotiation of point backs in EBR, minus 27 billions in club deal and 13 millions that make up this 37.8 billions, with 23% less in expenses and with net profits of 114 billions. On the next slide, as a goal for this year, we have the issuance of new bill directory. This is a resolution that has been delayed for several months, and the whole team has been working full-time, ensuring that we will have an issuance of this document, even though we don't have notice, effective notice, that it has been signed by the authorities. We are still waiting for a formal notification to be able to have documents about this. After that, there will be the analysis in terms of regulations, expenses, demand, and based on that information, we will be able to understand the impact of these new expenses. In 2025's budget, we leave the income for this emission, and we expect this to have a positive impact. And this depends on the content of this new bill directory. The authorities know that the price schedule needs to be updated, which did not happen over the last 3 years. We need to mention that we have a new resolution that regulate the wholesale market in terms of the resolutions and working plan of the new gas supply. The organization has reported that in August they will issue the procedure for requirement compliance, which will allow us to present the supply plan that are key in order to continue with gas supply that the country needs, and are also a fundamental part of the portfolio that creates the revenues of TGI as the main gas transporter in Colombia. Here you see a summary of all the different projects of the natural gas supply plan, even if the methodology hasn't been issued. And if it's issued over the next few weeks, you should be able to issue the proposals by October or November at the latest. These proposals need technical foundation. That's why for every one of the projects shown on the map, you have the bi-directionality of the different gas pipelines, the one of coming into Bogota that includes expansions of existing gas pipelines, that Vasconia La Belleza, for example, and expansions of stretches such as Centauros and Guaranday. All these projects are being done with strict technical rigor that will give us the real cost in order to have the most accurate valuation and to make a proposal that is really attractive and interesting for the authorities, that will enable us to put in place these projects over the next few years, and that will give us the plan for the future in order to supply the Colombian needs. In the upper part, we see the regasification project in La Guajira. This is part of the gas supply, and it was already presented by Craig. This would allow us, as TGI, to ensure the gas pipeline Ballenas Barranca. Those are 580 kilometers that allow for the coming of this fuel to come into the country, whereas the main consumption, that's where the main consumption of this fuel is. That's why TGI, thanks to the support of the authorities and the Ministry of Mines and Energy, is pushing for this project. This project will enable us to supply gas as of 2027, and we can ensure that we will have transport with an existing gas pipeline. Point number 3, today we have 2 expansion projects, which are Mariquita Guaranday and the branch Jamundí, with 2 compression stations with 1,000 horsepower plants. in Venadillo and Pradera. We have made progress of 86% and 31% according to the plan. We expect to complete the execution of these two stations and to have them ready to operate by October. And this is according to our timetable. And this is good news. We expect to give you good news over the next quarter about this specific part. Next slide. And we are happy to tell you that we continue working hard on efficiencies. The main efficiency that we've had, which is very noticeable in the reduction of operational expenses, which is less expenditure or less use of combustible gas or fuel gas that is used in order for our compression stations to keep the pressure of 1200 psi that require the transportation of gas. We're working with fewer compressors, not only as a process of hydraulic optimization. This will enable us to have less emissions and to significantly reduce operations on the ground, because we are working with the teams that are needed and with the equipment that is needed. This is why we are having consumptions today are about 4.2 gigabytes per day, and this is 40% less than we were consuming by this time last year. This is by the initiative of the whole technical team, whom I thank for this important work. In terms of CAPEX optimization, we have 51% versus the target, which is 13.2 billion. We are committed to maintain more maintenance and reparations that the gas pipelines might need, with a philosophy of paying attention to details that will enable us to significantly reduce investment costs that pipelines need, of course, but we need to do it in a more detailed manner from the technical standpoint that will enable us to reduce investment costs. Next slide. Where we see the transformation process. This is the image of our main control center in Bogota. This center controls the whole national gas transport system. At the back, we see all the different delivery points and the reception points of gas, as well as distribution points. That's where you can see the pressure, temperatures, and all the indicators in the national transport system. Our team has every tool and all the screens that enable us to continuously monitor and to have alerts of pressure drops or flows, so we can serve every possible situation. We have a completely modernized control center with cutting-edge technology that will enable us to communicate at the highest speed and communicate with our centers with a lot more accuracy. Additionally, I'm happy to tell you that we have an implementation of the service of cybersecurity service for protection and mitigation of risks. That is very important today. And we also have the Help AI table for help. We need to upscale this in order to get ever closer and use AI. We also have the approval of the second phase of factibility plan for Bogota. We expect to use gas coming from residues and waste. And this agreement with the Swedish embassy, we expect this pilot to start next year. We are making progress in transformation processes that our organization needs. Here we basically want to mention that we have a cross-cutting pillar, which is sustainability. We have today 100% climate adaptation plans and 80% in progress. In the waste generation baseline, we have hired apprentices with disability and operations area, and this is a program with huge outreach and a very nice scope, and this benefits the life quality of people with disabilities. We expect to continue leveraging and to making it grow. We have 120 dialogue events with communities in the different regions and districts of the country. We have 10 strategic risks defined that address change and trends in the sector, and 66% of progress in the plan of work for ESG in the supply chain. This is significant progress in all the areas of sustainability, and this is what I wanted to communicate with you from the general standpoint. I'll leave you now with Laura Higuera for details on the financial part. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, all of you who are joining us in this result delivery. Let's move into details of what happened in the second quarter of 2025 compared with the same quarter of 2024. As you can see on the left-hand side, we see that the firm contract has gone down in 30 million of cubic feet, and this belongs with the finishing of long-term contracts of some remittance. However, this firm contract has changed because of the source. The firm contraction in the charge fee for investment, there are no alterations. In terms of volumes transported, we see a movement of 485,000 cubic feet to 445. This is because of the thermal generation of 2024, because of the El Niño phenomenon that we don't have in 2025, and is reflected in the income in those 15 billion difference that we see. Now, on the left-hand side, operational profit, we see behind the effect of income and revenues, there are other three concepts, because costs and expenses such as depreciation and provision, where we register the different glosses, and other income and operational expenses. As this can be seen, this operational profit represents a difference of 52 billion compared to 2024. The main explanation is other income. In 2024, we reported 20 billion pesos because of the reversion of a legal provision that we don't have this year. This is a one-time effect, which is explained 40% of this effect. The remainder is expenses, costs, and expenses. The gas, if it has increased the cost of the molecule, TGI has focused, just as Jorge said, in terms of efficiencies. These efficiencies seek to reduce the gas consumption of our compressors, and from savings we are sending that to reposition gas. These savings can be used to cover gas losses, and everything is reflected in efficiencies. Efficiencies are effective in the next quarter of 2025, where we will continue telling you about this in other reports. On the center of this slide, we see EBITDA, the effects of depreciations, provisions, and other incomes. We see the correction of this indicator. We are reaching a difference of 23 billion pesos that is reflected with an EBITDA margin of 74.8%. It is still favorable, and it's above the forecast for this particular period. Lastly, we see net incomes with a difference of 12 billion pesos, would represent a very important correction in the face of operational utility, and this is leveraged by the financial and participatory method component, and it is leveraged by three concepts. The first one is financial expenses. We have savings compared with the same quarter of last year of 30 billion pesos, we have a more efficient financial expense. And the first one is the maturity of the debt. We repaid 472 billion pesos, and this year we already made a prepaid of 50 additional billions, and that is the factor that explains that. The second factor is the correction of the club deal with 7 points of reduction, and the last one is the interest rates with corrections going down for this period. EBR has behaved better. The other two factors for this compensation in net profits are better financial income and the better behavior of the method of participation by Contugas. We have to mention, if we compare this with 2024, in terms of the gas line, as Jorge mentioned, for this point we don't have a cut for the price schedule because it's expected for July 1st of 2025, which means that on next reports we will have more research about this particular headline. In terms of the budget and the additional efficiencies that we count here, TGI covers at this point almost 2 months of that delta by price schedule. Depending on the notifications of the resolution, we will get to know the impact, and on the next report, we will deepen into this detail according to that information. Now, to wrap up, on the next slide, we see what the behavior of this debt profile that we have. In the upper part, the balance is 3.1 billion pesos, out of which the bonus represents 72%, club deal 27%, with that tax of 12.3% rate weight averaged. And then other indicators that we do follow up of and how they have favorably evolved over time, leveraged by the concepts that we already mentioned. And with this, we can wrap up the presentation of results by TGI, and now we give the floor over to
Bueno, me indican que en este momento no tenemos preguntas.
No questions so far.
Pues vamos a continuar ahora con la
We can now
presentación de
move on
resultados de Cálidda.
with the presentation of results of Cálidda. I am Mary Villarreal, the mother of 4 marvelous children. I am part of the Control Center Viacisa of the area of Pachacute in Ventanilla. I am Isabel Castillo, mother of 3 children. They call me Toyita, and I am part of the soup kitchen of La Bastilla. For many years, we have been working with love and dedication on behalf of the well-being of our community. One day, we had this opportunity. We never thought that we were going to transform what others threw away. We didn't know much about broidering, but when this project came in, we didn't think that we were going to do it, but we managed to move forward. We didn't believe how reused garments could be used for anything. But as we moved forward, we realized that we were throwing away many things. I wouldn't give up, and I wouldn't let my friends down. I was resolute to make use of this opportunity and tell everyone that we can. And that day we said, let's go. We made it. Iconography was a very beautiful detail that we added, not only because it was a beautiful thing, but also because we include the value of our culture. This opportunity has been a relief. It has all helped us to generate income, but in the future we expect that to do so as well. We expect to continue working. This project carries the effort and love of working women, empowered women in Huachipa and Ventanilla. We got together to bring value to our work, our culture, and the value of recycling. I now give the floor to Mario Caballero, Financial Director of Cálidda. The floor is yours, Mario. We're going to go to the result review of the second quarter of 2025 in Cálidda. Over the second quarter, as a company, we continue moving forward with our objectives, mid-term and long-term objectives. In the short term, we have two branches of growth. One about the increase of coverage of natural gas, especially households. We have been able to add 30,000 more connections. The second one is around the development of vehicle demand in heavy vehicles, where we still have opportunities for change. Today, we are connecting and converting around 150 trucks per quarter, which by now enable us to have growth in that volume worth of 10%. It's important to understand that a truck tends to consume 6 times more than a light vehicle, which generates the effect in terms of volume and monetizing very relevant. In regards to the mid and long term, the second quarter has been very positive for Cálidda. After 2 years of negotiations with the Ministry of Energy and Mines, we have reached an agreement of what would be the 9th addendum of the license contract. And this one defines the obligations and commitments of Cálidda to bring gas natural out of Lima and Callao, which is the center and south area of Peru, as an exchange. We are trying to achieve an increase of this license to up to 10 years. The contract is still to be signed, but this is an important milestone, because once we have reached an agreement with our counterpart, which is the Ministry of Energy and Mines, that entity has already triggered a process with the government, which is the process of joint evaluation and assessment, where this addendum is subjected to revision by other state entities, who, for the last 2 years, are involved in the project. Therefore, they understand the project and they know it, and they understand it. That's why we are positive, and we want to come to the signing of this agreement by the end of this year, with more accuracy, probably by November. We will bring you more information about this relevant milestone on next calls. With this, let's move on to the second quarter. The volume increased 2.5%. All the segments that were served with natural gas performed positively. Here, from the second quarter 2025 to the second quarter 2024, we have 105,000 more connections with households. We have around 23,000 light vehicles already operating with natural gas for the same period. Additionally, we have 1,300 heavy vehicles in line with this campaign of continue our penetration with the heavy vehicle segment. In terms of industry, we had a great quarter in terms of fishing, with also drew the results. In terms of connections and networks, we added around 28,600 connections and 23,000 kilometers, and this is aligned with the plan with the government. Investment plan with the government. We continue moving forward and growing. Marginally, that growth is less, but this is explained by the potential that we need to cover between Lima and Callao is ever less, smaller. On that second quarter, we went above the 2 million connections for the service that we offer in Lima and Callao. It's important to understand that those 2 million in households, the impact comes by 8 million inhabitants. In terms of EBITDA, we see a growth of 4.4% in this quarter. It was pushed and driven by the line of gas distribution. The impact in monetizing is growing. It's bigger because the segments that are growing today in a more accelerated manner are residential. The prices of residential are 10% of the price schedule of an electric generation, and also the vehicle sector that has 5 times more impact than the electric one. So we have a mixed effect that helps us in the financial results. And finally, we maintain our ratings, credit ratings, and the revision of PCR for local. Both of them stay in stable investment grade. Next, please. In terms of facts and relevant key updates and results, we had a forum that was organized by Cálidda for the heavy vehicle sector, logistics companies, with this strategic focus that we have to continue growing in this segment and in this forum. What we did was not only talk about the good things in terms of economy and performance of natural gas, but also all the credit advantages in the market in order to promote the conversion of fleet conversion. One of those is the alliance of Cálidda with the Camisea group, especially Petrol in the group, which is the Camisea fund, which is a capital fund of extractors of the molecule, the consortium, and it is used in order to foster conversions with very good credit plans. The result of this fund is very positive, and there are around 1,000 vehicles converted with the utilization of this method. In this quarter, Racienza, which is the logistics operator of the Lore Group, is one of the largest groups, economic groups, in the food sector. They acquired 51 trawlers. This is very important in the food sector, therefore utilizing in a very important manner the heavy loads. This is good for other logistics operators. This will continue helping us with our strategy of continue penetrating the heavy vehicle sector. And then the granting of an award, the project of Laderas. Beyond the award, the most important thing that happened in Barevare, where 12 kilometers were built, that has helped us to collect information and financial information about the cost of bringing natural gas to the hills of this area. Today we cannot operate it because there are no regulations for that. This pilot is the first act that will help us compile information both for Cálidda and the regulator, and the regulation that will help us bring gas to these areas. And lastly, we had the visit of CAF in Cálidda. Today we are working with CAF with a transaction is 5 million worth of investment for the refinancing of syndicated that we have, the differential for CAPEX, which is linked to the expansion of our building process, and the visit was very positive. Today we already have engagement with CAF, and we are very close. In fact, this year we expect to sign this contract with them. We are happy to work with CAF, not only because of how easy the financial support is from them, but also because it gives us more visibility in terms of development industry. In terms of commercial, operational, and financial performance, as I said earlier, demand in the volume was around 818 cubic feet per day, growth for 4.4 compared to the previous quarter. And what is relevant, even if it looks small in terms of value, is the penetration, the growing penetration of the household and commercial sector. This is important because the price schedule that we have in that sector within the mix is larger than the one in the electric generation segment. Competitiveness of the schedule is good, is high, around 44% and 87% of efficiency, which allows us to continue feeding the usage of natural gas and therefore to continue adding to productivity and competitiveness of the prices. In terms of operational expansion, we added 28,000 new clients. As I said, in this quarter, we went above that threshold of 2 million users. The pattern is that within the mix of clients, around 20 to 25% are clients of social and economic levels. We bring it in a massive way, first of all with the vulnerable sectors, which are known here as the sectors C, D, and E. The remainder potential for connections, because we have covered most of those sectors, is basically we start to find the higher economic layers of society. The effect is that a consumer from A and B tends to have 3 or 2 points versus the ones in the more lower layers of the social and economic classification. In terms of networks, we are around 18,800 kilometers, 18,800. We expect to increase some 150 more kilometers worth of networks. This financial result, EBITDA, as we said, it grew 4% compared to the same quarter last year, and this is leveraged in the segment of distribution, volume 2%, and the mix helping with 2 additional percentage points. In terms of net income, what is clear is that growth is slower, around 2%, and this is because it is a company that is still going through expansion process. Naturally, we continue adding CapEx in a very relevant manner. Cálidda adds to the assets between $100 and $120 million. This has an impact in terms of maturity and payments and CapEx. This CapEx tends to be leveraged by the financial sector system. In terms of EBITDA margin, 66%, 63%. We want to continue improving it and reach levels of 65%. A few years ago, the margin was 60%. Within the organization, clearly, we're looking to balance both objectives that we have, to continue growing and to generate efficiency. This translates in these measurements and metrics. 2 years ago, we were in 60%, today 63%. Our goal is to achieve 65% over the next 2 years and to continue improving as the company starts to expanding less, and we will focus more on the maintenance of the network. In terms of debt, the most relevant aspects are we do have maturity and payments for the next 2 years, especially by 2026. We have an important tower of $410 million, and that is election year in Peru. And the decision that was made with the approval of the Directory of Cálidda was to accelerate the refinancing of that debt. Therefore, we are about to close the transaction with GAF, which will enable us initially to repay this payment in an anticipated manner and also add additional capital for all the capex that we're working on. We are likely to have by the end of this year. This picture is likely to change by the end of this year because of the effects of repayments of 2026 for the next 5 years that will give shape. In financial ratios, we remain in multiples of 4 and coverage around 7. Next, please. In terms of projection for closing this year, we expect to execute 750 kilometers of networks and maybe 150,000 new connections, EBITDA between $250 and $225 million, and leverage beyond the leverage of 4. Multiples of 4. And with this, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Muchas gracias, Mario, y al equipo
Thank
de
you,
Cálidda.
Mario,
A
and
continuación,
the team
abriremos
of
el
Cálidda.
espacio para las preguntas que nos han
We
dejado
will
en el
now
chat.
open the floor for questions in the
Tenemos
chat.
unas preguntas. Iniciamos con las preguntas de Sebastián de Cálidda.
Questions
Dice
of Sebastián
Gallego de
Cálidda.
Ashmore.
Sebastián
¿Nos pueden
Gallego from
ampliar
Ashmore.
sobre la nueva
Can you
regulación
talk
de
more
gas
about
en Perú?
new gas regulation
¿Cómo
in
se va a
Peru?
manejar la tarifa
How
por
is that going to be
regiones?
handled? How is the
¿Los
price
cambios que
schedule going to
promueve
be
la ley
handled by region?
alteran o
The changes that
incentivan las
promote the
inversiones?
law alter or
Esta es la
promote
primera parte. Y
investment?
si quieres,
This is the
adelante,
first part.
Mario, y
So,
continúa
Mario,
con otras
you can
preguntas.
address those.
Sí, gracias por la pregunta.
Thanks
Esta es una
for this question.
prepublicación que la vemos de manera
That
bastante
is that
positiva, porque lo que está buscando de
has
alguna
been-
manera es
has been
acomodar
published
los cambios que
previously.
son necesarios para
We want to
poder
adjust the
justamente,
changes and
desplegar,
accommodate that
lo que sería el proyecto
in order to
de
deploy
extensión.
the extension
Un
project.
ejemplo,
As
Cálidda
an
hoy en
example,
día trabaja
today
sobre la base
Cálidda
de no
works
tenemos
with the
regasificadoras.
base of
Cuando, si es
ducts.
que,
We
digamos,
don't have
llegamos
regasification
a
plants.
concretar la firma de la adenda, el llevar el gas a regiones va a requerir
The idea
que
is to
ciertas zonas esté
bring
bajo
gas to
modalidad
certain
virtual,
areas
con lo cual hay que
and
invertir en
under a
regasificadores.
virtual
Las regasificadoras hoy en día no son consideradas
modality.
parte del BNR, del activo
Regasifications
que es
are not
Esta
part of the
regulación
remunerated
lo que está buscando es
asset.
aclarar esos puntos y decir
This
claramente las
legislation is
regasificadoras serían
this
parte,
regulation is
del
trying to
activo
clarify
remunerado,
those points,
para una
and the
concesión que
regasification
tenga
will be part of the
que
remunerated
operar
asset
bajo
for a
una
connection that
modalidad
will have to
virtual. Ejemplos de
operate
estos, y hay
under a
otros, han
virtual
sido básicamente
modality.
incorporados para
These and
justamente
others have been incorporated
acomodar,
to
la
accommodate
regulación a lo que está buscando
the
Cálidda
regulation
con
to
el
what
proyecto de
Cálidda wants to do
la
with the
tarifa,
project of the addendum.
básicamente uno lo que tiene
The
que-
price schedule,
que considerar es
what
que,
you have to do
esta
is
adenda lo que está
this
buscando
addendum
es
seeks to
anexar más zonas
annex
al contrato
more
que tiene
areas
hoy
to
en
the
Cálidda.
contract that
Entonces,
Cálidda
es
has
como,
today.
de una manera tal vez
So,
simplificada, considerar
in a
que una
simplified
nueva
manner,
región
we
es un
need to consider
distrito
that a
actual
new
de Cálidda.
region is a
Cuando nosotros
current Cálidda
vemos
district.
CAPEX,
So when
lo que va a
we
suceder
do
en
CAPEX,
esas regiones,
what's going to
ese
happen in
CAPEX
those
al
regions is
numerado va a
that
sumar al BNR,
that
y
CAPEX
la
will
demanda asociada va al
add to
denominador,
the
con lo cual,
BNR, and the
lo que terminamos
associate
teniendo
demand
es,
will
básicamente
give
una
us,
tarifa
at the end of the day, we'll have an
equivalente
equivalent
hacia
price schedule
tanto lo que se tiene hoy en día
towards
en Lima y
Panto, what
Callao
we have in Lima and Callao
La
as
idea, de
regions.
otra manera, es
The
licuar
idea,
todos
one
los
way or the
efectos
other, is like to
desarrollados por
liquefy all of
de
the
Lima,
effects in
Callao,
this new
Panto.
area in
Con lo cual,
Lima, Callao,
aseguramos
and the
que el
regions.
volumen que se tiene en
That way,
Lima
we assure
ayude
that the
a
volume, the
subsidiar
Lima
o apalancar
volume, will
los
help
esfuerzos que van a
subsidize or
hacer
leverage the
regiones,
investments for
mantener
the
una
regions
competitividad
to
importante
maintain
y
important
también asegurar lo que ha sido una
competitiveness,
demanda
and assure what
de
we have
las personas que
had
están,
of the
digamos,
people
los pobladores, las
who
autoridades que están en las regiones, es
who
que
are
la
in the
tarifa sea
regions,
equivalente. Con esto
that the
tendríamos
region,
una
that the
tarifa
price schedule should be
exactamente igual
equivalent.
entre, alguien que está en un distrito de Lima, alguien que
A
está en un distrito
person
de
that are
Cusco,
in
alguien que
Lima
está en
or
un distrito
Cusco
de Ucayali.
or Ucayali.
Gracias, Mario. Hay otra pregunta de Sebastián
One
Gallego
more
de
question from
Ashmore.
Sebastián Gallego
Con la
from
nueva
Ashmore.
ley,
With the
se
new
espera la
law,
entrada de
with the
compañías
new act,
estatales para
We expect to have new state companies to compete for gas distribution in Peru. How does that articulate with the new expansion plan that you said? In fact, no, we haven't seen anything.
Esto de acá está ligado al reglamento de distribución en particular.
That is connected to the distribution rules. The distribution rules, what it does is it creates the rules of whatever would be of remuneration of the assets. We haven't seen that this proposal of distribution is linked or associated with a policy of more participation of new players. Today, the areas that aren't taken care of, in the south, for example, we have Petro Peru, or they are doing it, but the intention of the state is to give that to a private company. Those are licenses. I believe those are completely different and independent topics. This publication has been conceived to expand the scope. And what they want is to regulate the price schedule for the licenses. It should be more robust and better, and it could be potentially more important for a third party that would like to probably go to an area where there are no licenses. However, licenses ensure that there will be only one player in that part. Of course, the focus here is Lima and Callao, the operator is Cálidda, and there are no other distributors, or the contract would not allow to have another distributor to compete. In any case, the benefit of this regulation is there more for other private actors that might see an area that is not under operation, and that would be more attractive to come in. Thank you, Mario. We move on now with a few questions for TGI. First question is from Sebastián Gallego from Ashmore. Good morning. Can you give us more information about the provisions for the controversy of the value scheduled for the clients? And are those provisions expected to be recovered? The guidelines of 2025 for TGI included net incomes of 420 billions and EBITDA of 84 millions. Do you reaffirm this guidance, or do you expect changes given the results of the second quarter? Laura Higuera, Deputy Manager of Financial Planning. Thanks, Sebastian. The first question, in terms of provisions, today we are expecting the regulation authority about the firm contracting. Once they give their point, we will determine the next steps. What can happen after the process? It might be either favorable or not. In case it is favorable, what is going to happen is that the provisions that we have, we will go back, we will be recovered, and that would be a positive value for TGI. Today, we register from 2023 up to today, June 30, we have registered 116 billion pesos in provisions. If it is not favorable, or these provisions are constituted, we are therefore protecting the PGI of the company, making very profitable this register of provisions. That is in terms of provisions. In terms of the guidance of 2025, we remain in this guidance. We are waiting for notification and to get to know what the resolution is, and we will have more certainty about potential delays or potential financial impacts. And secondly, as I said, because today at TGI, the more savings and income that we have in OPEX, we are already covering of 2 months of that price schedule. So we are covering that delta. Depending on what the resolution is, we will tell you what the potential adjustments to guidelines are in case there are
Gracias,
any.
Laura.
Thank you,
Tenemos
Laura.
otra pregunta
We have another
para
question
TGI de
for
parte
TGI
de Lucas Howard Noguera
from
de la
Lucas
Radio
Howard
Mundial.
Noguera
Dice,
for
hola,
Radio
¿nos
Mundial.
podrían detallar
Hello,
aquellos
can you give
activos que
details
están
about the
cercanos a
assets
cumplir su
that are
vida útil
about to
normativa
comply
y
their
cuál es el outlook en el
regular
escenario de
life
déficit de gas natural?
and what is
Le doy la palabra a Luis Alfredo
deficit?
Cerrato, gerente de regulación.
Luis Alfredo
TGI.
Cerrato, the
Adelante, Luis Alfredo.
regulating manager of TGI.
Luis
Luis
Alfredo,
Alfredo.
¿podrías por favor volver a iniciar la respuesta de la pregunta?
So, in 2027, we are expected to comply all the assets, also the gas pipeline from Mariquita to Car. The regulator modified the resolution 175 with an asset with their normative life, accepting that it is necessary to recognize the cost of these assets when they end their useful life and the investments to continue working with these assets. We will see what the next investments are to continue operating with the asset, but that information will be given to the regulator by June next year, and for Mariquita Cali in June 2027. The other question about the lobe in terms of the supply of gas, natural gas. Number one, you need to see the report of the market manager of availability for 2026, where you'll see whether there are like non-conformities for different areas. There's important fresh pressure. However, the demand is expected to be covered with natural gas. It will begin flowing through the interconnection in the short term between the systems of the coast and the central part of the country. You have to remember that there is an interconnection of 66 millions of cubic feet between the two systems, and soon, before December, it will be expanded to 100 million cubic feet. That additional expansion of the systems from here to the coast that will help with those shortages. And also we have the private initiatives, but these are associated with imports and regasification of natural gas to cover those gaps. The Guajira regasification, this is an initiative of TGI that will help us collaborate in the coverage of those gaps for 2027. It's important to mention that the UNE and the ministry issued norms about natural gas, and those projects are key for the coverage of supply over the next few years, thinking in the mid and long term.
Muchas gracias, Luis Alfredo.
Thank you, Luis Alfredo.
En este momento no tenemos más preguntas, así que pues
we don't have more questions right now, so we will want to thank you all for joining us. From the teams of investment engagements from TGI in Cálidda, we are happy to answer your questions. Have a happy day, every one of you. Since 1896, we have been energy in action, moving. 129 years afterwards, we are a force that fosters and pushes forward Colombia, Brazil, Peru, and Guatemala. 5 years ago, we started a new way. The results speak by themselves, complying with our main purpose, improving lives with sustainable and competitive energy. With the negotiation with Enel, we liberated 965 million pesos. We created Enel Colombia with additional equity value of 5.5 billions in actions, trillions in assets. We operate an important Latin American energy, transport, and generation of energy. In Colombia, with Enlace, we lead one of the huge plans of clean energy. Collector is the important artery of energy in Guajira. We move forward to integrate about 1,000 megawatts to the energy system in Colombia. We will transform the general and energy reality in Colombia. We build one of the most important dialogues in the different communities, indigenous and Afro-descendant communities, based on respect and mutual dialogue. Through TGI, we operate the main gas transport system in Colombia. It's a network of over 4,033 kilometers that fuel the main cities in Colombia. We ensure our position as architects and players of gas supply through strategic projects in the country. In Peru, Cálidda brings natural gas to 2 million households, and it continues bringing gas to other regions of the country and diversifying its portfolio for clients. The Dunas Group strengthens the distribution of electric energy. Duna is a pioneer implementing renewable and storage of energy with batteries and making sure that there is supply of energy for Peru. Contogas moves forward in a financial recuperation and reduction of expenses. Its liquidity is improving. We transform a company that is healthy today, and it's an engine of power for the country and the sector. In Brazil, with Redeia from Spain, we acquired 50% of Arwen Energy. We added the projects of Real Matres, incorporating 2,738 kilometers of transmission. The Energy Group of Bogotá is the 5th foreign investor in Brazil. In Guatemala, Conecta moves forward with the expansion transmission plan with over 90% of progress with the Modesto Mendes and Guatio Este. These are bulwarks of energy for our Guatemala partners. We issued the first sustainable bond of energy in the market, the first in America and 5th in the world in gas utility ranking in the world. Over 7,500 beneficiaries in the program for territories in Colombia, which seeks to train in capabilities for employment and plans for energy transition, focusing on our umbrella for sustainability through the Grant Fabio Chaparro and the Hotbed for Talent. We identify the best academic and professional talent for them to study in the most prestigious universities worldwide. We created the Corporate Synergy Center with savings of 160 billion savings every year in the face of the budget of contracting. Since 2020, our businesses have created over $90 million. Our stock triplified. And with that, the investment for Bogotá, over 1,000 collaborators in digital transformation. But a project such as this is not built on sand. It needs resolute integrity. We know that trust is the most important asset. We have created a pact of transparency that involves every provider, partner, and collaborator. This is the code of honor that directs every one of our directions and decisions. It's sustained because of the solidity of its corporate governance. We have a competent board of directors, a team that ensures rigorous decisions with enriching debates and deep knowledge of the region. Thanks to this structure, we have trust in the leadership and certainty in the future of our investments. Behind every moving forward, there is a structure that guarantees transparency and sustainability. We are more than an enterprise. We are a promise that is being complied. We keep our word and we will continue moving forward to consolidate our main purpose of improving lives with sustainable and competitive energy, because as a group it's much better.